there, fellow law-abiding travelers. Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're here in Bath, England. And today we want to talk about are some of the laws and regulations that tourists might get in trouble for breaking when they travel. Because when you travel, you think, oh, the laws are pretty much the same everywhere we go. Well, that's not always the case. So I want to give you some of the more common things you might need to look out for in certain destinations around the world. And I want to start out with something fun but mind-blowing, and that's this: sitting and having an ice cream on the streets of Florence. Yes, due to over-tourism and the number of tourists that are there, there's actually streets in Florence that you're not allowed to eat on or drink on or have your gelato on. Yes, gelato is the quintessential part of going to Italy. But certain streets, because of the over-tourism, look, it blocks people up, makes too much of a mess, don't do it, okay? So if you're in Florence, have your gelato in the gelateria and then go explore on your own. Now, another warm weather destination that people like to go to is Athens, Greece. And I'm going to tell you right now, ladies or gentlemen, there are no high heel shoes at the Acropolis. Actually, there's no high heel shoes at most of the historic sites in Greece because the high heel shoes chip the marble, therefore they don't want you wearing them. So sadly, no high heel shoes in Athens. Another thing you might want to know about is this, actually more of a serious one, is traveling with your medication, because medication might be legal in one state or country, but illegal in another one. And it doesn't matter if your doctor's notes say it's okay and you're doing it as a prescription. If you have that medicine in another country, you can get in big trouble with it. You have this a lot with painkillers and such. I mean, Japan is very strict. In Japan, you can't have codeine. I mean, it is one of those serious things. You hear stories about executives and travelers getting in trouble for that all the time. So do be aware of that. So if you're on any medication, you might want to check, is everything okay for me to bring with me? Because you might get trouble when you land in the airport. Now, another thing I think is important for travelers, I know I see a lot of travelers now want to travel with their drones, but you have to realize some countries, when you travel and you take a drone, you can get in big trouble. For example, in Morocco, when you come into the airport, there's all kinds of things you fly in. No drones, no drones. And I mean, even if you have parts of your drone and it's not even your drone with you, you can get in trouble, okay? So make sure you know the regulations on that. Now, for my cool hipster kids out there, another thing that you can get you in trouble is actually vaping, especially if you put into that wacky tobacco in your vapes. Look, vaping isn't legal everywhere in the world, and therefore you can get in trouble for that, just possessing it, so do be aware of that. Let's go back to more of a fun kind of one that can get you in trouble, and that is if you feed the pigeons at Piazza San Marco in Venice. Now, back in the day, I remember back in the day, you'd go there and there were people that literally would sell feed seeds so you could have the pigeons cover you and do that. Now, not anymore. Now, if you're caught feeding the pigeons in Venice on Piazza San Marco, you can get yourself a little fine. And keeping up with my laws in Italy routine, but this is actually in a lot of places, your helmet. If you're going to rent a Vespa when you're in Italy, make sure you have the helmet as well, and not just you as a driver. Anybody that's on the Vespa with you, everybody has to have a helmet. I can't tell you, we were driving around Sicily and I saw these people getting in trouble because they didn't have their helmets on, because the Carabinieri, the police there, they're going to catch you and they're going to fine you if you do not have a helmet. Now, another thing you have to realize is when you're going to different tourist destinations, every city, every county, every town, every state has different rules, right? And so sometimes it's important for you to notice those things. So if you're going to, for example, the national parks in the US, they will have a thing saying, do not get up close and personal with the animals there. One, it's for the animals' safety, but actually it's more for your safety, because there's all kinds of people every year that want to get up and close and personal and get that picture with the bison. Darwin never loses, people. Darwin never loses, okay? Because that's actually to protect you, because those bisons, they've been known to buck a few people over the years. So some of those regulations are in place to help you, because you know what? Maybe the fine is better than the broken bones. And I mentioned the National Park Service in the US because I think it's also important to put in with those rules and regulations. Just make sure you're not skipping out on reading through those when you're going to places, because in the US, yes, you can have drones lots of places, but not in the national parks. And, you can get up close to the animals and, the petting zoo, but not at national parks. So really making sure you follow those regulations, because you don't want a ranger coming up and fining you, because they will. And speaking of getting fined or getting in trouble, another thing is important to realize is in some countries, what you post on social media can get you in trouble. So for example, if you post anything anti-government about Turkey while you're in Turkey, that could get you in trouble. Or if you post anything that can be seen as defamation towards people and they go after you in those countries, that can get you in trouble. And sometimes when you're thinking about these laws that you might be breaking, you might think, this can't be illegal. What's wrong here? I think one thing people need to realize, it's actually against the law in Amsterdam to buy drugs off the street. Now, everyone says, well, but in the Netherlands, you can buy drugs there. You can get marijuana. You can get those things. Well, yes, you can get your space cakes and your marijuana, but only in a coffee shop, not on the street, okay? Remember, drugs are bad, kids. Drugs are bad, all right? Especially if you get it from people off the street. And in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, you can get arrested for that. Now for my fashionistas out there, I think there's a thing you need to realize of some countries, there's certain clothing that you can't wear. And if you're going to go to the Caribbean, you can't dress in camouflage. Because the idea is if you're wearing camouflage, you're dressed up like the military, therefore you could fake being a military person. So they actually have laws in place that says you're not allowed to dress that way because it might give people the idea that you are a part of the military, you're part of the government, and they don't want that. So if you're going for your Caribbean vacation, leave your John Cena t-shirts and your camouflage gear at home. Now, another thing you might not realize is when you go to different countries with these different laws, it might impact you in different ways. So for example, if you're going to United Arab Emirates, you're not allowed, it's illegal to have sex outside of marriage. So if you're going to be coming there as a couple, but you're not married, you might have to get 2 separate rooms. Now, sometimes you can get away with it, but I don't know if you want to take that chance because technically that isn't really allowed. Now, the next thing that might get you a fine when you travel is if you're out on a hot day in Italy and you're like in Rome and you decide, I'm going to hop in the fountain. Well, most places it's against the rules, against the law to hop in the fountains, so you might get a fine for that. Well, not everywhere, but if you're in Rome and decide you want to hop into Trevi Fountain to get your picture, you better believe you are going to get a fine for that. And you may be thinking, but I was hot, I was just trying to cool off. Well, that doesn't really matter. Your reasoning why does not change the fact that they have rules against that. And sometimes there's things you don't realize are a rule. For example, Barcelona, the beach capital of Spain, the beach capital of Europe. Well, you think you're going to the beach, you're wearing your bikini. Well, you got to know this. You're not allowed to wear your bikini in town. Now, when you're on the beach, yes, on the beach in Barcelona, wear your bikini, totally fine. But when you come into town, you got to put a shirt on. Sorry, no bikini in Barcelona city proper. On the beach, you're okay. Now, another thing I think is important is when you travel around the world, some countries have much more strict conditions and regulations when it comes to taking pictures of people and taking pictures of locations. For example, in Egypt, you're not allowed to take pictures of some government buildings, so you could get in trouble for that. I remember there's a story back in Paraguay, we're talking like years and years ago. It was really bad. Like if you took a picture of the president's house, bad things would happen to you. But in general, just make sure you know which places you can take pictures, you can't take pictures. Because sometimes it's, hey, don't take pictures of the police because we don't want people to know who they are so they can track them down. Others, it's because they think you might be a spy, giving people the information about their super secret hidden bases. And then there's other little things like chewing gum in Singapore. Don't do it. Anybody from any of those 90s kids out there know the caning for the chewing the gum instance back in the day? Yeah, it still is illegal to chew bubble gum when you are in Singapore because they don't want the mess. It's a super clean city. You'll see that when you're there. And then I want to talk about this one. This is one you'll see in the US, and it's called jaywalking. A lot of places they have jaywalking. It's where you cross the street, not where you're supposed to. What you don't realize is that's one of those easy ways that you can get nailed. They can say, oh, you didn't cross where you're supposed to, $75 jaywalking fine. Yep, sometimes you just cross the street in the wrong place can get you a little fine. So what are some of the weird fines you've received or heard about on your travels? Let us know in the comments below to help out other travelers not be rule breakers, but fellow legal, not breaking the law travelers. Bye from here in Bath, England.